أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون واجعلني خيرا مما يظنون. أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome one more time to the House of Dua, and welcome to this special presentation designed to remind ourselves that in our times of distress, we have no other one to call upon but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's always there to relieve us of our distress. Today, we are trying to share with you one of the most beautiful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, which was reported in Sunan al-Tirmidhi as well as the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam are a compliment to the Quran. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam did not say anything or do anything on his own except by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked him to do or say. Allah says, He didn't say anything out of his own wish or desires. No. All he said was based on Allah's revelation as well as the inspirations he got from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So paying attention to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is like paying attention to the entire Quran. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the hadith we are bringing to you today is very important. The reason is that many of us, whenever we lose an opportunity, we tend to lose hope. But that should not be the character of a Muslim. Many of us also wait for the time we are in distress before we start reaching out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Him to come to our aid and expecting that miracle will happen overnight. And when what we ask for is not granted, we tend to lose hope. A good Muslim should not do such a thing. A good Muslim must always reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obey Him, stay away from His prohibitions, worship Him, stay close to Him. In such a situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also reach out to you. He will love you. He will stay close to you. And when you need Him, He will be out there for you. This is the nexus of the hadith that we are trying to share with you today. As I said, the hadith was narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, and it's reported in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Abdullah ibn Abbas narrated that one day the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam was riding a camel, and he was riding with the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam directly behind the Prophet. What an opportunity. I wish I had similar opportunity. What about you, my dear brothers? I wish we had the opportunity to ride the same mount with the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Yes, Abdullah ibn Abbas was a little boy who grew up under the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Himself and other boys like Usama bin Zayd radiallahu anhu. Same thing with Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. These were boys that grew up under the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Abbas said when they were riding this camel, the Prophet told him, "Oh young man, I'm going to give you some words of advice." And he told Abdullah ibn Abbas, "Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will protect you." That's number one. Number two, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will always find Allah in front of you. Number three, if you need anything, if you must ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you need help, seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, if the entire humanity or the whole world were to gather together to do something that will be of benefit to you, they won't be able to do anything that will benefit you except by that which Allah has already written for you. And if the entire world was to gather to do something that will harm you, they won't be able to harm you except by that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you. He told Abdullah ibn Abbas, take note, the pen has been lifted and the pages have dried up. That is the narration in Sunan at-Tirmidhi. In the narration of Imam Ahmad, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam gave a similar advice to the same boy. He told him, be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will be in front of you all the time. And know Allah in your times of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know you in your time of difficulties. And remember that that which has hit you was not meant to miss you, and that which has missed you was not meant to hit you. In other words, whatever difficulty that comes your way, it was not meant to miss you. That was by the qadar of Allah. And whatever difficulty that passes your way does not meet you, it was not meant to meet you by the qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he told Abdullah ibn Abbas, take note, for every victory comes patience, and for every affliction comes relief, and for every hardship comes ease. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in the Quran, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, it's a long hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, but there's a segment of it that we are focusing on today. And that is that part of the hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam told Abdullah ibn Abbas, تَعَرَّفِ لِلَّهِ فِي الرَّخَاءِ يَعْرِفْكَ فِي الشِّدَّةِ. Know Allah in your times of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know you in your times of difficulty. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, pause a little bit and think about that. Many of us always want to reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our times of difficulties. That is not the best way to do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and endowed us with enormous opportunities. We enjoy a long period of ease, but once in a while, He tests us. He brings some afflictions upon us to see what will happen, either directly or indirectly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't they know, can't they see that أَنَّهُ يُفْتَنُونَ فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ مَرَّةً أَوْ مَرَّتَيْنِ, that every year, once in a while, we test them once or twice. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, we are created to be tested. We are also created with endowments, capacities to handle some of the problems that we come across, either by ourselves or through the assistance of fellow human beings like us. But there are moments when some difficulties or some issues may go out of our hands. No one else can provide relief except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even what you are able to do for yourself or got done through somebody else is also by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, let's not count out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our lives. He's always there to help us. As I said, all the Anbiya of Allah, the example we learn from them is they hang on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of difficulties and in times of ease. They obey Him, they worship Him, they stay away from His prohibition, they call on Him from time to time, they ask for His forgiveness whenever they made mistakes. Same example we are expected to follow. But unfortunately, many of us fall short. As I said, we wait for when the difficulty is face to face with us before we know we're going to call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Guess what? Whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to you or not depends on your credit history, depends on your relationship with Him. How well have you been close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What have you done in compliance to His commandment? Those are the things He's going to consider before He decides whether or not to respond to your need in your times of difficulties. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam says, تَعَرَّفِ لِلَّهِ فِي رَخَاءِ Yarifka Fishita. Know Allah in your times of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know you in your times of difficulties. Yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever we call on him, there are two options. Either he responds to us positively, or he may respond to us negatively, or he may even ignore us. He says, on the day of accountability, there are some, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell them, today we are going to ignore you the same way you ignored our warning of the coming of this day while you were in dunya. Yes. The implication of that is that even in today's life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could also ignore your calls if you, after time, you ignore obeying his commandment, worshiping him, staying close to him. If you don't have a good credit history with him, therefore, you bet that in your times of difficulty, when you are calling on him, it might take a while, or you might get nothing at all. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, this is why it's very important for us to know Allah in our times of ease, so that Allah will know us in our times of difficulties. Ease in terms of what? Ease in terms of your possessions. If you have something, if you have some possessions or wealth, spend it wisely in the way of Allah, as commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ease in terms of your health. While you are still healthy, worship Allah. Don't wait for the sickness to come or the old age to come before you start struggling to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ease in terms of your time. When you still have abundant time at your disposal, go ahead and use the time wisely before it is too late. Use the time in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ease in terms of your skills. What kind of skill do you have that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed you with? Put it at the disposal of the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before it's too late. That's why we have another beautiful hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam advised us to take advantage of 5 things before 5 things are taken away from you. Your head, your time, your wealth, your life, and so on and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to us through the Prophet, advising us to take advantage of this opportunity before the opportunities are taken away from us by something else. For example, take advantage of your health before sickness comes. This is the reality of life, and this is the example we find that the Anbiya of Allah were following. Now, let me ask you a question. In all sincerity, who do you think can help you in your times of difficulties? I'm talking of a situation, for example, where there is a natural disaster, or where a sudden sickness comes around, or a situation such as we saw recently. A group of people entered a submarine to go and look at the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean, and something happened. In such a situation, who do you call upon? While you are in the aeroplane up there and it's wobbling, who do you call upon? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered these questions. Allah says, Qul ma yunajjikum fi zulumatil barri wal bahr tad'unahu tadarruan wa khufyatan لئن أنجانا من هذه لنكونن من الشاكرين. Tell them, Ya Muhammad, who is the one that will respond to you to save you in your times of adversity, in your times of trials and tribulations? Who is the one do you call upon when you are in such a difficulty and you declare, if only you can save me, Ya Allah, from this trouble? I will indeed be among those who are grateful to you. And Allah says, Tell them, Ya Muhammad, that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no other one, grant them ease when they are in difficulty. But unfortunately, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them ease out of such difficulty, what do? They associate partnership with Allah. They give thanks to something else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا رَكِبُوا فِي الْفُلْكِ دَعَوُا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ إِذَا هُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. Whenever they are in a ride, either they are in the sea sailing on the ship, or they are in the aeroplane up there, what do? they call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their moment of difficulty. But whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered them to the land safely, instead of thanking him, they give thanks to something else. Today we want to also give you some instances of the Anbiya of Allah, how they call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their moment of distress. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abandon them? No. No. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not abandon them? Because aforetime, they will always rely on Allah. No one else. They obey his commandment. They worship him. They ask for his forgiveness. They glorify him from time to time. They stay away from his prohibition. So, when it was their time of need, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to their need. Take Ibrahim, for example, alayhi salam. Imagine the time he was thrown into fire and he told Allah, Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is sufficient for me. What did Allah do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we ordered the fire. Ya naru kuni baradan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. O fire, cool upon Ibrahim. At the end of it, Allah says, wa aradu bihi kedan fajalinahum akhsarin. They plotted against Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we foiled their plot. Subsequently, he was expelled by his father from home. Ibrahim alayhi salam became homeless. He didn't know what to do. That was a moment of distress to him, and he declared, Inni zahibun ila rabbi sayahdi. I'm out of here. I'm going towards my Lord, and he is going to guide me. What about Prophet Musa alayhi salam? In his time of distress, Pharaoh Lanatullahi alayhi and his soldiers were pursuing Musa and his followers to kill them, and they came across the sea. They were between the devil and the deep sea. The devil being Pharaoh Lanatullahi alayhi. And the followers of Musa alayhi salam told Musa, here is the water and we are going to drown. And Musa told them, Kalla inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdi. Kalla, relax. Take it easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me and he will guide me. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide him? Yes, he did. What about Prophet Yunus alayhi salam? He found himself in distress in the belly of the fish. فَنَادَى فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنتَ سُبْحَانَكَ إِنِّي كُنتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Right from the belly of the fish, he began to cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no other God but you, Ya Allah, and I have wronged myself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْتَجَابْنَا Allah. He responded immediately. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ وَكَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We responded immediately and saved him from the adversity, and that's how we save those who are believers. And dear brothers and dear sisters, what about Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam? He was leaving Makkah to Medina after the threat at his life by the Mushrikun of Makkah. He was accompanied by Sayyidina Abu Bakr on that very perilous journey, and they had to take refuge in the cave, and the enemies were marching on. They were right close to the cave, about to meet them. Sayyidina Abu Bakr was freaking out, telling Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, we are done. The enemies are here, they're going to find us here. But did Muhammad tell him, don't be afraid, Allah is with us. Did Allah disappoint him? No. Allah says, we sent Sakina upon him, and that Sakina consisted of soldiers that the eyes could not see to protect them. These are the Anbiya of Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in their moment of distress, came to their aid. But as I said, many of us always wait for things to happen before we start calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas it's better for us to earn the love of Allah by getting close to him and observing his commandment and staying away from prohibition and loving him and worshiping him, so that in our times of need, he will also love us and come to our aid. Now let's look at the example of two people who were drowning and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to their aid. One positively, the other one negative. And why was that very result? Because of what both of them did previously before they called on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The case of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam and the case of Pharaoh Lanatullahi alayhi. Prophet Yunus alayhi salam found himself in the belly of the fish through drowning, more or less. He was swallowed up by the whale. But yet, inside that belly of the whale, is Zulumat. 3 levels of darkness. Darkness in the sea, darkness in the belly of the fish, and darkness in the atmosphere. Yet, Yunus alayhi salam was calling on Allah. La ilaha illa ant subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. There's no other God but you. I have wronged myself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fastajabuna Allah, we came to his aid. وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ وَكَذَلِكَ نُنْجِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we save him from the adversity, for that is how we save those who are believers. Why did Allah save Yunus alayhi salam? Listen to what happened in Surah Safat. Allah says, فَلَوْلَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُسَبِّحِينَ لَلَبِثَ فِي بَطْنِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. If not because previously Prophet Yunus alayhi salam was glorifying us, was worshipping Allah, was close to Allah, his relationship with Allah was perfect. Allah says that was what we considered before we asked the fish to go and deliver him by the side of the river. You can see how your previous behavior towards Allah, your relationship with him, can be of benefit to you when you are in distress and you need Allah's help. What about Pharaoh? Pharaoh lanatullahi alayhi pursued Musa to the side of the sea. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to get Pharaoh and his soldiers drowned by the sea. But while water was pouring into the mouth of Pharaoh, he called on Allah in that state of distress. Amantum annahu la ilaha illa allazi amanat bihi banu Israil wa ana minal muslimin. Now I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of Bani Israel, and I'm now a Muslim. But how did Allah respond to that? He declared, Aliyana wakari asweta kablu wakunta minal mufsidin. Is it now, at this last hour, that you're going to believe when previously you rebelled against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you were among those who were corrupt? It's too late for you. My dear brothers, my dear sisters. The relationship with Allah matters a lot. That will determine how Allah will respond to your call when you are in a state of distress. Let's consider the case of the 3 people who were traveling in the desert. According to the hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah and some others. The Prophet said, 3 people were traveling in the desert. At the middle of nowhere, there was a huge storm. And so they decided to take refuge in the cave. As soon as they entered the cave, a big boulder fell from the top and covered the entry to the cave, so they couldn't go out. What did they do? They decided to plead with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, using the goodness they have done previously as a reference point. One of them told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I honor my parents so well. I used to make sure that they eat before anybody in my house would eat. One day I came with a cup of milk to give to them. I found them sleeping. I didn't allow anybody to drink the milk. I waited for them to wake up before anybody else could drink. But they didn't wake up until daybreak. If I did this because of you, Ya Allah, let this boulder move away. And the boulder actually moved. The other one said, I had a cousin whom I love so much. I paid her some money in order to have affairs with her. But just at the moment I wanted to have affairs with her, she told me, fear Allah. And as a result of that, I stayed away. I didn't have any affair with her. Ya Allah, if I did this because of you, allow the boulder to move away from me. And the boulder moved. And the third one pleaded with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I used to have a slave who worked for me. And when it was time for me to pay him, he went away, he did not receive his pay. So I invested his pay in my business and realized a lot of yield in terms of cows and goats and sheep. And finally, after a long time, he came about asking for his wages. And I told him all the cows and sheep and goats that resulted from my investment of his money now belong to him. He was shocked. Ya Allah, if I did it because of you, please allow the boulder to leave the entry to the cave so that we could go out. And the boulder finally moved away from the entry of the cave and all of them went out. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, that's how our past deeds can be of relief to us when we are pleading with Allah in our times of distress. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, your relationship with Allah matters a lot. This is what the Prophet meant when he says, Ta'araf ilallahi fi rakhai, yarifka fi shidda. Know Allah when it is easy for you, Allah will know you when it is difficult for you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count us among those who know Him in our times of ease. And we look forward to Him coming to our help in our times of difficulty. ربنا تقبل إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت الغفور الكريم سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.